Welcome back to The Narrative. In this segment, we turn our attention to a developing constitutional controversy in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, one that could have far-reaching political implications. A letter has been sent to the returning officer for the Northern Grenadines, asking that opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday be disqualified from contesting the upcoming general election. The basis of the challenge, that he holds Canadian citizenship and therefore, according to the letter's author, is ineligible to be nominated as a candidate under the country's constitution. But how clear is the constitutional provision on dual citizenship, and what power does the returning officer really have in this situation? To help us understand the legal and the constitutional issues at play, I'm joined by attorney at law in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Bacchus Baptiste, who has long been an observer of the electoral and constitutional law in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Welcome to the program, Attorney Bacchus.
Good morning and welcome.
Attorney Bacchus Baptiste, for the benefit of the viewers, can you outline what this constitutional challenge is about and who has filed it? I have seen a document sent to the returning officer, but can you break it down for us as an attorney?
Yes, well, actually, it is not only one seat that's being challenged, but two. Some of the constituents of the East St. George, of the East Kingstown constituency challenged MP Bramble, Fitzgerald Bramble, a sure win seat for the NDP. And similarly, some of the constituents of Northern Grenadines challenged Dr. Friday, another sure seat for the NDP. And the challenge was that they both hold capacity, and therefore, according to them, they have sworn allegiance to foreign power and that they should be disqualified under Section 26 of our Constitution. The
And
challenges were not held by the registering officers of both constituencies, that is for East Kingstown and also Northern Grenadines, which means that they are both nominated, their names will be on the ballot, and they are set to contest the elections on the 27th of this month. So those challenges were not upheld. However, Dr. Gonzalez has been on radio and everywhere else that he could go, saying that once they are elected, as everybody knows that would happen, then he will file a petition to challenge their position and whether or not they can represent in the House because of that same provision, Section 26. But Dr. Gonzalez himself has been on radio I think it was 2009, when he wanted persons to vote for the new constitution. And one of his criticisms of our current constitution is that once you hold a Canadian passport or you hold a Commonwealth passport, you can vote and you can run for office in St. Vincent. That was his main criticism why he wanted to change the constitution. And I have a clip of him saying that. But the constitution was not changed because the referendum was not successful. So we still have the same constitution in 2009, 2000 as we have now. And the provision is very clear. Section 25 says qualifications for representatives and senators. It reads as follows: subject to the provisions of Section 26 of this Constitution, a person shall be qualified to be elected as a representative and shall not be so qualified unless he is a Commonwealth citizen of the age of 21 years upward. Now, the qualification, according to Section 25, is not even for a Vincentian citizen. It doesn't say a citizen of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
it
It
says
says
Commonwealth.
clearly a citizen of the age of 25. Now, what does 26 says? Because it does say subject to 26. 26 says, no person shall be qualified to be elected or appointed as a representative or a senator if he is, by virtue of his own act, under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or otherwise to a foreign power or state. Now, clearly, Canada be regarded as a foreign power or state because The allegiance that anybody who has a Canadian passport will swear to. The allegiance with Vincent is one allegiance, one and the same. The king,
Let me ask you this here. So the Constitution itself does not distinguish between being under allegiance to a foreign power and simply holding dual citizenship. How does it
no,
distinguish? How does it distinguish between
no,
the
no.
allegiance to a foreign power and dual citizenship?
Dual citizenship is not necessarily a disqualification. That's the law. It is if it is a foreign power. Those are the words that are important. If it is a foreign power. And as I said, under the interpretation provisions, let me just read it again. Yes, it doesn't speak about dual citizenship. It says is by virtue of his own act under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state. And it gives up disqualifications which do not concern us, like a minister of religion, a judge, etc. So the issue here is whether or not a Commonwealth citizen can be regarded as a foreign power. Ralph Gonsalves himself has been on record saying no, and that's why he wanted to change the constitution. This is a scare tactic. This is because Gonsalves sees himself in the election and he wants to create some sort of um, fear in the minds of electors. He has actually addressed the electors of East Kingstown and non Grenadines and urging them not to vote, because he says they vote today. We have done the opposite. We are quite clear as to what the law says. If he wants to bring a petition, that is his right. He can bring the petition. But I want persons to understand very, very clearly. Dr. Gonsalves nor Fitzgerald Bramble swore allegiance, have not sworn allegiance to a foreign.
Dr. Friday. Dr. Friday, you mean?
Sorry, Dr. Friday. Dr. Friday, of course. Dr. Friday or Fitzgerald Bramble. Neither of them has sworn allegiance to a foreign power. And that is the end of the matter. As I expect that they will carry on with it to create some hype. But as I said, even Dr. Gonsalves himself is on record, and persons still have the video that he made with him. They could see him saying that that was one of the reasons why they wanted to change the constitution during the referendum stage.
Dual citizenship.
Swearing allegiance to and swearing allegiance to a foreign power. That is the issue. So it's not the issue of the dual citizenship per se, but it's swearing. For example, if they had an American passport, that's the end of it. They would not have been able to run.
Because the United States is not part of the family of Commonwealth, the family of nations under Commonwealth.
That, that is it.
Because we have, even
That's
in Grenada, we have also encountered this debate. It involved, I believe, the independent MP Peter David. He held a Canadian citizenship. I believe there was some conversation about that, and this came up that as a Commonwealth country, it does not run afoul of our constitution, which says the same thing, that that you're not allowed to participate if you have sworn allegiance to a foreign power. And so this debate continues. Are there any instances in the Caribbean that you are aware of where this argument in any shape or form has held sway?
Yes, there are a couple cases. I know of one in the syndicate Nevis case where Denzel Douglas was he applied for and received a diplomatic passport. And in that case, the courts held that he had sworn allegiance to a foreign power. Well, we know that Dominica is a commonwealth and the head of state is a president, not Queen of England. And he had by his own act he applied for and so it was disqualified. But there are equally other cases, for example, even where an American passport was held, that the courts did not uphold the challenge because there are hurdles you have to pass in order to prove the event. So it's not the fact that you hold it, it is whether you can prove it in court. But we don't need to go there because none of these persons who we expect to be challenged are holding United States passports.
US
They are
passports.
Commonwealth passports. And so I don't see the issue. I expect they would make a lot of song and dance about it. But we are confident and we say, let them bring it up.
You are simply dismissing this as a political ploy by a politician who sees the end of a very long reign.
Well put. I couldn't put it better. It is exactly a political ploy. Now, Dr. Friday has been in Parliament for what, five, this might be six consecutive times. How come it wasn't raised before? And you know what?
But
A lot of
the letter
senators,
does, Attorney Bacchus, the letter does go back to 2005 and that 2020 and all of those previous years that he has held his parliamentary seat, saying that that he has also made false declarations. In I think it's false declarations, the letter says. In those instances, they're also bringing into question in the letter that has been written to the returning officer. In his instance, of course, two challenges have been brought. That they're bringing that also into question. Does that have any bearing?
no, it does not. Again, as I said, all baseless. And they are aware that they would be met with the challenge, well, why did you do it before? So they have inserted that part, hoping that it would just cover them. But whether they did it before, or they do it now, or after, they're going to be met with the same challenge. We are a Commonwealth state. We are. And our constitution does not even call for a Vincent citizenship. It says a Commonwealth. It just speaks to a Commonwealth nation. So they don't have a point, just a political point. And I know they will try to milk it for as much as they can, but I can tell you the NP is not concerned. Our candidates will be elected and they would remain unchallenged because they would not win if they bring a petition of this nature to our High Court.
And how
So
is
persons
this?
can rest,
Rest assured, because I was about to ask you
yes.
how are the people in those particular constituencies, and in fact across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because you're looking for a party that can win and form the government, and the status of your leader is being challenged. How is that resonating on the ground? How are people responding to this challenge?
What I can tell you is that the majority of persons recognize it for what it is. Just a political challenge of a person who senses defeat and wants to give some hope to his group. That's all it is. The persons who will be voting for the NP will not be listening to us and what we have to say because we have already reassured them that there's nothing to be worried about. And I'm doing it here again that we are highly confident that if petitions are brought on this spurious ground, they will fail.
Analysts have said right here on my program that it's a close call, this election that's coming up in a few days, that we're looking at 7-8, 8 in favor of the incumbent, so that, with just a little bit of nudging, that we can see a whole new administration rise in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Have you done, has the NDP done any polling? Well, I'm sure you've done polling. I should ask if you have. And can you speak about that?
What I can tell you is that the majority of Vincentians have dismissed that poll. I listened to him on your program. I saw it, and when he said that his polling showed him that more NDP persons are likely to change from NDP to vote ULP and than the UL change to vote NP, I laughed at him. This morning, a popular radio station held a poll because everyone is laughing at that finding. And 99% of the persons who called in said clearly that is incorrect. More persons would be leaving the ULP to vote for the NDP than leaving the NDP to vote for the ULP. That finding alone shows me that his poll cannot be relied upon. So I have no doubt that the best finding he could make is that NDP may get about 7 seats. That's the best finding he can make in favor of the ULP. But we have no doubt that our polls show something different. and that we will be winning this election.
How different? What is your poll from what was presented here on my show?
That we will be winning the election overwhelmingly. I cannot give seats or percentage or numbers. Last time we had the popular vote, and this time it's going to be much much higher with the popular vote than it was in 2020, and we're definitely going to win more seats than the UL. I'm not going to be here telling you how much. I can see around 10 at least.
Okay, and you expect that you will once again take the popular vote.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, some say, though, going out a little bit into some geopolitical issues, that at this time in where the Caribbean is at, and all that's happening to the south of us, and the United States militarizing and having this strong presence, making a request to Grenada, of all places, to have a radar here. We hear in Antigua, the Prime Minister Gaston Brown saying absolutely not, no military presence. And the zone of peace seems to be facing a bit of upheaval. Some say Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, as one of the leaders in the Caribbean at this time, is what the Caribbean needs. How would you, is Dr. Friday prepared, should he become one of the prime ministers of the Caribbean, to hold the line for the zone of peace?
Absolutely. And I think Dr. Friday has addressed that already. That we all love our Caribbean and we all want it to be a zone of peace. I cannot speak on foreign policy for Dr. Friday as such, but I can say that the criteria for us to remain a zone of peace is of paramount importance. I am not picking sides. I do not know what your prime minister would do. I understand he's leaning against allowing it. And personally, I think that that's a good decision. But at the same time, I do understand the fears that Kamala Persad, the Trinidad Prime Minister, has, she has expressed. I understand the fears. I am totally against running over the rule of law and just shooting persons out of a boat without due process. That is me personally speaking, because I do not understand how you can just be determined to sentence persons to death like that. And so I'm against it. But at the same time, we have to balance the drug run that has happened in the Caribbean, and if we can find a way to resolve the drugs that's running through the Caribbean, I think through dialogue, against just using weapons.
All right, Attorney K. Bacchus Baptiste, thank you so much for joining me here on The Narrative, and good luck with the upcoming general elections.
Thank you very much.
That was Attorney K. Bacchus Baptiste speaking on the constitutional challenge to Dr. Godwin Friday's eligibility to contest the upcoming general election in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we know that Dr. Friday's name is on the nomination papers. He will run. He was accepted by the returning officer, as well as another constituency where a challenge was also raised, both in the race. And those are two sure seats for the opposition in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. K. Bacchus dismissing the situation as political maneuvering on the part of incumbent Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. As the debate unfolds, it raises deeper questions, though, about how Caribbean constitutions treat dual citizenship and whether our laws have kept pace with the realities of migration and modern identity. We will continue to follow this story as it develops and bring you updates right here on The Narrative. We will continue also to follow the campaign in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as that in St. Lucia. Prime Minister Philip J. Perry announcing early elections almost a year ahead of schedule in St. Lucia as well. This is The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier, the place where we keep you up to date. More when we come back.